Hello from Lucoshi and welcome back to another episode of the Egyptian Zoo. In this episode I decided to rework the entrance a little bit because I got some feedback saying it didn't look really Egyptian, and I completely agree on that regard because it doesn't. And that's because the diagonal walls at the sides weren't really diagonal but more really weird curvish, and the tops of the entrance weren't the way I wanted them to be. But I thought it wasn't possible to do them the way I wanted them to be. But I thought about it, and I decided that it was. If we use the little pillars and the panels which come with the beige building set, we are perfectly able to do it. The only downside is it takes a lot of time, as you can see, and it uses tons of scenery pieces. But we will be fine because since we have a lack of foliage in this park, we can make up for that with the scenery pieces. And the scenery pieces are really low poly models, so they don't really use a lot of resources, if I am correct. So yeah, not a whole lot happens in this episode, but the end result is really cool in my opinion, and it's a big improvement. And it will set the tone for the rest of the zoo a lot better than the original entrance did. It also shrunk the entrance a little bit. It's slightly smaller now, which is good because it was slightly too big. I thought it was perfectly fine, but then I looked at the entire map for a second and it's really big. But we'll be able to build a lot of exhibits in this zoo. Talking about the exhibits, I got a lot of feedback from you guys on the previous video, telling me some animals you would like to see, and that's great, and we'll try to get as many of those in there as possible. You had some great suggestions, and I love the fact that you were willing to give suggestions at all. It shows that you actually watched the video, which is good, which makes me happy. So yeah, next episode, hopefully we will get started on the first exhibit. And for the first exhibit, I'm not entirely sure what we will build yet. I want it to be a really wow factor animal, if you will, because it's the opening animal of the zoo, the first animal people will see when they walk into the zoo. So I want it to set the mood for the entire zoo, to really get you into the zoo feeling instantly. And I think in this zoo that it'd be best to do with a hoofstock animal, a big one. So I'm thinking elephants or giraffes or something. And then hopefully we can create a really big open exhibit with which is open at all sides, so that from the entrance we can see almost the entire zoo. I think that would be really cool to do. And a fun little challenge in this zoo is that we can't make exhibits look pretty with foliage, which is my usual go-to thing, just plopping down greenery everywhere. But in this zoo we really have to work with layers and with the ground textures and stuff, and with buildings. And that's something really cool, I think, and it's a challenge for sure, but I think we'll be able to do it. So the challenge in this zoo is to make everything really open and empty and barren, but still not boring. Which, especially if we start with a really big exhibit for like elephant and giraffes, could provide a challenge, because then we really have to work with the terraining to make it look good, and the buildings, like I said. But we'll be fine. And I think especially making the buildings in the zoo will be a lot of fun, because we can really do some cool stuff, and especially with these new techniques I found for both the sides of this building and the top I'm building right now, I think we'll be able to do some really cool stuff. I'm also working at some extra building sets for my own with some hieroglyphics and stuff, just so that we can detail a little bit more, because I still think the walls of the entrance are a little bit boring and bland, and they could really use some hieroglyphics or something. I don't really want to use a lot of color, because whilst that would be cool, I do think the zoo could be even better if we just stick to this color palette we have right now. which is just beige and the woods color, and just not a lot more. Maybe a darker wood color which would match the ground color we will be using sometime, because I want to use some dirt in enclosures and stuff, because I really like the color. I really like the colors together of sand and some darker dirt stuff. I think it's a really cool color scheme. They look really cool together. They complement each other well. So yeah, as you can see, the top of the building is made out of panels. I didn't fill in the entire square because that would just be useless, because we won't be looking at it from the down. Wow, we won't be looking upwards to it. We will only see the bottom of the little ridge of the ceiling. I guess I could say the roof. But yeah, the inner parts we will only see from the air, so we don't really need to add that. The front plaza was also a bit boring in my opinion. I first wanted to do something with terrain, but that wouldn't work because it's at the entrance, so you can load the terrain everywhere. So I decided to make a little scarab in the paving, and it's weird. I wanted to get the 8 legs in there, but that wasn't possible, so I decided to give it wings because why not? I think it looks kinda cool. It just adds a little bit more, makes it a little bit more interesting, and makes it a little cooler at an entrance. So that's everything we did in this episode actually. I'll have a little overview in a couple of seconds. Yep, there you have it. And you can see the entrance at the moment. Yeah, I think the gate itself could use a little ceiling. I think that roof should stick out a little bit more. But we'll do that some other day, probably in the next episode. And hopefully next episode we'll also start work on the first exhibit. And start work on the training and stuff, because I'm excited to do that. This zoo will have a lot of height difference, and I think it could become really cool. So thank you for watching, people. I hope you enjoyed this, because I really enjoy making this zoo so far, and I'm glad with the end result. And hopefully I'll see you next time. Goodbye!